In this second week of sheltering at home, I hope all is going well for you. I know a second week might feel more like a second month or a second year, but I hope everybody is thriving in the midst of this. It has its own unique challenges, and it also has some blessing to it. So let us continue to cultivate the blessing in the midst of the challenge. All is well here. It's good to be home this evening. I've had lots of busy days at the office, believe it or not. We have been on the phone with the diocese for several meetings with other parish leadership. So much to sort through in terms of the administrative challenges and financial challenges and liturgical challenges of trying to navigate through this and maintain some sense of stability and prayerfulness and high levels of ministerial service. I'm so proud of our staff. We met earlier today by Zoom, and everybody continues to be busy about their work and try to continue the mission of St. Elizabeth Parish, even working remotely. I'm also so proud of our St. Elizabeth School students, teachers, and staff. You've done an excellent job of getting into this distance learning. As unexpected and challenging as it's been, you will never forget this experience. You'll have great stories to share with your friends as you move forward. At alumni reunions in the future, when you talk to your kids about your time at St. Elizabeth School, you can talk about these days. I know that's not something you'd like. You'd probably rather just be here for school every day, but it will be something you treasure as you move forward. I'm working without a tripod tonight because I want to share something with you on some shelves. I have a collection, and it's something that's very dear to me. Years ago, I was walking through a thrift store, and as I did, I saw on a shelf the strangest piece of pottery I had ever seen. It was a strange little plate glazed in two tones of brown, dark brown and a light brown. And I walked past it, I kept going, but it was funny how it just kept beckoning to me. So I went back and spent more time with it. Kind of a down-to-earth, strange, unusual shape. And the colors were just kind of engaging to me, even as it was strange. It felt both alien and earthy at the same time. I turned it over, it was only 19 cents, and I thought, well, I don't need a plate, but there's something cool about this, I'm just going to buy it. And thus began my collection of Frankoma pottery. Frankoma was started by a man named John Frank, who was a very gifted potter. He studied at the Art Institute of Chicago in the early 20th century. He and his wife, Grace, lived in Oklahoma, and they began this pottery. Their pottery produced dinnerware, they produced art vases and art sculptures and various decorative pieces over the course of many decades. Frankoma is endearing because it's got a strong Americana theme to it, but at the same time a strong Native American theme. There is some Art Deco influence as well, and the glazes themselves are quite unusual. There are some typical matte glazes of the early 1930s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. But what John Frank is well known for are his rutile glazes. Rutile has a shading effect or a two-tone effect when it's combined with another glaze. And I'm just going to show you some of my collection first, and then I'll talk about a few pieces in particular. So I have a lot of it. This is just a little bit of it. Those canteens in the back are some of my favorite pieces, partly because they're just very unusual and partly because they're hard to find, and I love the glazes that I have. As we go, you'll see that some of it is that two-tone green and brown. There's also a gold color that's two-tone lighter tan and brown, that piece in the back. Sorry about my shaky hands. But you'll also see that there are some more pastel colors, that blue-gray jade and turquoise and redbud, that pinkish color. There's ivory, there's a black, there's a royal blue down here on the bottom, that boot. That is a very highly sought color. white. Those are Christmas cards back there, those little oval shaped things. They would send those to vendors every year for Christmas. Just some neat ideas that John Frank had. In some ways, I think he really thought outside the box. This green candlestick right here is a good example of prairie green. You can see the effect, that two-tone effect. It's a green glaze, but the Rutile creates that brown highlight effect to it. Really nice. These snail salt and pepper shakers are in ivory. That's a very old glaze, and that's a very rare shape. It's hard to find those snail salt and pepper shakers. This creamer sugar here, it's a mini creamer sugar. It's a very rare set, and it's in a glaze called fawn brown. I love that color. I love earth tones. I love that Osage brown, that sorghum brown color there on that canteen. I haven't seen another one of those since I bought that one. That canteen and that blue-gray jade, it's a great color, a very appealing color to a lot of collectors. That next color is red bud. It's another very appealing color to a lot of collectors. But in the front is my Pride and Joy canteen. It's a matte yellow. I have seen maybe only a couple of other pieces in my life that are this matte yellow. Usually the yellow is high gloss and a shiny sunflower color, but this is a matte yellow. It was a very rare color, produced only for maybe a year or two. They call that canteen the Thunderbird canteen for obvious reasons. And I just love it because I think it's fun that somebody produced a canteen out of pottery. Probably not very practical, but clever all the same. You see those three ringed creamer sugars there. That ivory one there is especially old because the handle is a little narrower than this other one here. This set is in a dusty rose, and I got that creamer a long time ago for $5 or $6. These days it's worth a lot more than that. That dusty rose is a rare color, and that piece is a rare shape. I found this creamer recently on eBay, and I couldn't believe it because it matches that creamer, and it's the same color, dusty rose. I think it's a coup to have the creamer sugar in such a very rare set and such a very rare color. Love these Puma salt and pepper shakers. The Puma is a trademark logo of Frankoma Pottery. And I think this Puma is just beautifully rendered. It's hard to find Pumas for an affordable price. I was fortunate to get these at a Jason Roski auction. So thank you, Jason and Stacy, for providing a great venue for people like me to be able to find things like that. That light green creamer, it's Silver Sage. That's a very rare piece. I got that for $2 years ago at an antique mall. It's a rare shape, rare mark on the bottom, and I just love it. That little picture there is in prairie green, but it's an older version of prairie green because you can see behind it that flat vase is also prairie green. It's just a newer version of it. I love the mottled effect of the old glaze, and that's a very rare piece too, with a very old mark on it. There's so much to see with Frankoma. The glazes all look so neat all together. That royal blue, very rare color and highly sought by collectors. That little picture is something you'll see frequently in Frankoma pottery. I love this creamer sugar set. It's in a pattern called Lazy Bones. I don't really know what that means, but there's such an organic feel to it. It's neat because there are little indentations for your fingers in this. And I love this glaze color. It's called Clay Blue, and Clay Blue is another rare glaze. I love finding pieces of that. Just a quick tour of the other shelves. Those oil derricks clearly cultivate that Oklahoma reference. Love that little ringed pitcher behind in that ivory color. You see I have a lot of blue-gray jade because I love it. Love these individual bakers, the kind of thing that isn't very practical, but I sure love that they were produced. this little cornucopia vase. My dad actually found it at a thrift store, I think in Holden, Missouri. And he called to tell me he'd found it. And I told him I'd been looking for that for a long time. So, of course, my dad kept it and kept taunting me with it for a long time and finally gave it to me since I had such a big collection of it. On the bottom shelf here, I love this wall pocket. John Frank produced a lot of wall pockets. Some of them were acorns, some of them were this wagon wheel pattern, others were Native American men and women, and just a neat idea to have wall pockets, especially with that Americana theme. These boots, I love these cowboy boots. That royal blue, of course, is very rare, but they're all great. Anytime I see a cowboy boot, I buy it if I can afford it. These are neat because these are called Christmas cards. Every year, John Frank and Grace would send these Christmas cards to their best customers. And they tried to choose a theme for the year. So you can see that this was 1969. Merry Christmas from the Franks, 1969. You can buy those for every year, going back, I believe, to 1954 or 55. The newer ones are less expensive. The older ones, of course, are really cool and very expensive. You can see that Southwest theme that runs through a lot of Frankoma pottery. There's a cactus vase, and here is another Southwest vase. Frankoma is something I will always love, and I hope to keep carting this collection around with me wherever I go, even though it's a lot of work. I've actually considered a couple of times getting rid of it, and then have just started to spend time with it and think, oh, I can never get rid of this. I just love it. Earthy, honest, down to earth, and still yet somehow alien, inspiring, beautiful. I'm really grateful for this collection, and I'll cherish it for the rest of my life. Nice to spend time at home and to draw close to things like this again. It is one of the bright sides, I think, of spending time at home, learning to appreciate what we have and finding the beauty in what's around us, especially our families and all those who are dear to us. We stand in solidarity with those who are sick. We stand in solidarity with all who work in the noble field of healthcare. Thank you for your great service, especially as you put yourselves at great risk. We continue to pray with you and for you, for all who are sick and for the families of the sick. May God continue to shepherd and shelter and guide us lovingly through these days. I'm so glad to be here with you. May God continue to bless you and your families.